So it comes to this. Gotta beat Duke.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Friday, March 7th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Friday going the right way. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all our Locked On Tar Heels insiders, and our great Discord as well. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. One of my favorite things that we do ahead of these Duke and Carolina games is connect with our guy, JJ Jackson, the host of Locked On Blue Devils. We might not like the Blue Devils, but I like JJ. He's a good dude, really insightful. And so I'm so pleased to present to you our Locked On crossover, Locked On Tar Heels with Locked On Blue Devils. Oh, baby, it's time for round two, JJ Jackson. Carolina, Duke crossover here. We've got JJ Jackson, the host of Locked On Blue Devils. I'm Isaac Schade, the host of Locked On Tar Heels. And it's time for what we do every year, JJ, the regular season finale. This year, it's in the Dean Smith Center. And here's where we're going, folks. We'll have a section where JJ quizzes me on Carolina. We'll have our third segment where we just talk big picture stuff we haven't gotten to yet, make game predictions, talk about Carolina's bubbly issues. Can Duke hold on to this one seed? All of that. But first, I'm going to start by querying. Yeah, that's a good word. JJ on Duke and where things are at. JJ, here's where I'm starting with this thing. If I'm Hubert Davis and the coaching staff, I'm looking at this Duke team and thinking, holy goodness, this team is so strong. They're deep. They're offensively wildly capable. They're defensively wildly capable. They're massive. There is so much strength to this Duke team. What I'm trying to identify then is with any basketball team, there are chinks in the armor, albeit perhaps very small chinks in the armor, but you got to find that soft spot and get the arrow right in there. JJ, from your purview, from somebody who has seen this team day in and day out for months now, where are the small chinks in Duke's armor?
Truthfully, Isaac, they're really hard to identify, which is the making of a great basketball team, which Duke has proven to be throughout the course of the year. I thought for a while, the chink would be trying to extend the game or maybe push tempo a little bit, because that's something that Duke wasn't really comfortable doing early on when you looked at the way their offense was set up. But now they're on a run where really going into that game against Illinois in Madison Square Garden, they hadn't had 70 possessions or more in a basketball game all season. And now 4 of their last 5 games or something along the mark there, they've been able to push that tempo up and they've been able to score more at a high volume. So looking at what Duke does offensively, the best luck that opponents have had have been just cold shooting nights from the outside and really putting big work in on the boards. If you can truly dominate Duke in the rebounding battle, that goes a long way. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for Carolina to be successful in this one, because Duke has proven all throughout the year that they are capable of playing fast or slowing it down and running offense in the half court as well. So if you can maintain possession, make the most out of your offensive effectiveness and make it more tricky for Duke defensively, that's where it's going to be a big success there for North Carolina. But truly just identifying like one chink or one soft spot, I don't mean to come off as, oh, this is an amazing, but that's truly how it's been all season.
Yeah. Man, that's really interesting, JJ. What, like, as you look at the 3 losses, which is funny to like that we can so easily identify that. I think a lot of people from the outside looking in are like, well, obviously Cooper had a turnover at the end of the game. Well, look, sure, maybe you can identify to such, but like, is there any thread through those games that you can point to, or is it just like, hey, we lost a close game at the end, didn't make the play?
Early on, you felt like you could, because 2 of the 3 losses were in your first 7 to 8 games of the season, and the Duke went on a 16-17 game winning streak before dropping that game to Clemson, and now they've been on a big winning streak ever since that one as well. In those games early on, it was Duke not figuring out exactly who wanted to have the basketball in sets like that. Cooper Flagg wasn't initiating as much of the looks. Same goes for Con Knippel. And in those first losses against Kentucky and Kansas, Con Knippel was a non-factor whatsoever to open up the year. But since we've started ACC play, He's back to shooting over 40% from three-point range in conference games. He's averaging really high scoring numbers for Duke over this stretch. He's sharing the ball well and that sort of thing. So the fact that Duke has so many different offensive threats has been really successful for them this year.
JJ, in the past week or so, there's been a couple injury things we need to look at here for the Blue Devils. Obviously, Malik Brown missed some time, came back, and has been missing time again. Any as we record, folks, it is 4:30 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. At this point, are there any injury updates on Malik Brown's availability for this weekend?
Yeah, still for the most part, just kind of up in the air. I think it's not ruled out that he would be able to play. I think there's still a possibility that he's able to get into action there. I think it's so funny because Malik Brown missed a few games earlier in the season with an ankle injury, and we saw him come back for the first time against North Carolina.
That's
and
right.
Immediately on his very first defensive possession, his hands are all over the place per usual. He's able to get a knockaway, and it leads to a Duke transition bucket there. It's crazy that could be the case once again. Duke has been without Malik Brown for a handful of games now with the shoulder injury, and here he could be making his return for this Duke team. So I do think it's possible he returns, but your guess is as good as mine at this point. Truly feels like, the old game time decision is what we're looking at here.
We got a GTD designation on this, and it was such a freaky play. I mean, I saw it and felt it in real time. And for folks who might look at it and say, well, Isaac, JJ, who cares? Malik Brown comes off the bench. Kaman Malawach is the starter at the 5. You and I know that Malik Brown is a big deal, but why? JJ, tell the good people why.
He does everything. I mean, his hands are so crazy. They're incredibly fast and active. He leads the Duke team in deflections. He's been kind of playing back and forth with Cooper Flagg all season long in terms of who leads this team in the steals department. His ability defensively is what he was known for. We knew that when he transferred over from Syracuse, but then it's just a whole different thing to get to watch it night in and night out. I mean, he just does not take possessions off. You would think maybe he is a little bit undersized in that 6'8", 6'9" range. Doesn't matter one bit whatsoever. He's going to be active out there on the perimeter if you force him to be. He can block shots when he needs to, and he's just always in the right place at the right time. Not much of an offensive threat, but really capable kind of put-back guy. He's made a couple of threes on the season, but that's not truly his game. But he just does a little bit of everything, and he's a winning player, and that's why he keeps getting out there on the floor. I mean, I just mentioned it a moment ago. As soon as he checks in to the game against North Carolina and Cameron earlier this season, he wreaked havoc, and that's what he's done all season when he's been out there on the floor.
JJ, in other injury news, Tyrese Proctor had that knee injury. Thankfully, nothing structurally wrong with him. It ended up just being a bone bruise. Weren't sure how long he would be out. It ended up being the exact same length, forgive me for a cheap shot here, exact same length as Grayson Allen's indefinite suspension, missing the FSU game, and then coming back Monday against Wake Forest. Did everything seem good to go with Tyrese in that game?
Yeah, it actually did. I was shocked that he was able to come back as quickly as he did. A lot of people are curious, if, the added element of that being Duke's senior day. And yes, Tyrese Proctor is not a senior, but there are definitely draft options for him. It could very likely have been his last game being played inside Cameron Indoor. You're curious if that could have led to him wanting to be out there on the floor one more time for this. Interesting thing from that game that Duke fans were quick to point out, and Johnny on the spot with this. First time ever we saw Tyrese Proctor with the cutoff shirt underneath a jersey. You would have figured that might have happened had there been a shoulder or arm injury or anything like that. But to your point, this was the knee that was bothering him. So that was a change, getting him back into uniform for the first time, and for the first time in 3 seasons wearing an undershirt. But he seemed to be fine.
Was it I'm thinking back to JJ. Was it like the JJ sort of cut off, but still kind of a sleeve at the same time?
No one has ever reached JJ. I don't know that we're ever going to see that level. Absolutely. Absolutely. You could never, he didn't figure out how far down his shoulder he wanted the cutoffs to go and that sort of thing. And no, this was your typical kind of compression short sleeve shirt that Tyrese Proctor was wearing.
I don't see how one of the greatest shooters in ACC and NCAA history is where I couldn't shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
JJ, the one of the biggest pieces of news in the last couple of days, obviously it had been rumored, but now is official that Jay Lucas will be going down to Miami after the regular season. So one more game as a Duke assistant. And then obviously there's been speculation about the Boozer twins because of they're choosing between Miami and Duke. That seems like a nothing burger to me. But my bigger question is, what kind of potential distraction does this cause for Duke in a massive game to end the regular season?
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's going to be his final game there on the sidelines. He's meant so much to the Duke team, not only as a recruiter, but truly, John Shire calls him his defensive coordinator. We're hearing a lot of coaches throw out those coordinator terms in the sport the last 4 or 5 years, when typically you would, hear those words and assume that we're talking football here. But no, he's been in charge of the Duke defense and has made a really big impact on that end of the floor. The fact that he has taken this job at this time, I totally get that, hey, you need to go out there and recruit. This is a bigger NCAA picture and problem at large here. But that's obviously a cause for concern with this Duke team, because he has been so good at calling up the defensive shots. So I hope it's not a distraction, although I would not be surprised if it turns into a bigger one.
Yeah. We were talking, it does feel much more football, where you make a move before a meaningless bowl game. But as we were saying off air, like, this is a Duke team with legit national championship aspirations. So hopefully it doesn't upset the apple cart. Last question, and then we'll get to a break, JJ. Cooper Flagg, for those who are unaware, leads Duke in average points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks per game. Is he going to finish the season leading in all those categories? If I'm right, blocks is the closest to somebody, with Molly Watts right there behind him. And any shot he's overtaken in any of those categories.
Unless we just see a monster game from Common there with the block shots. And then prior to this latest absence of games from Malik Brown, that was really neck and neck in the steals department for Cooper Flagg. But no, it really does look like we're going to end the year with him leading in all 5 categories. I think a big storyline in this one as well is, as we get towards the end of these end of season awards race, I think it's all but safe to assume that Cooper Flagg is going to be the conference's player of the year, right? And freshman of the year and all these awards that come with it as well. But what a heated race we've had all season long between him and Johni Broome. And anytime when you look at Johni Broome, who's coming off back-to-back single-digit scoring performances, Cooper had 28 his last time out. I think if Saturday Cooper Flagg puts up a really high-scoring effort, I'm not calling for 42 like he had earlier this season against Notre Dame, but 25 plus, I think that's going to be so big for him in that race and trying to be a freshman to win the National Player of the Year award.
His stat line in the Wake Forest game on Monday was absolutely absurd, dude. Triple-double type numbers.
Yes.
I've been saying, JJ, this is my favorite National Player of the Year race since, let's go back to somebody we referenced just a bit ago, JJ Redick and Adam Morrison back in the 06 season. All right, guys, I got to abdicate the question-asking throne. Let JJ take a seat, and I will be in the hot seat. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action, man, is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So maybe you're getting your chili and you missed the opening tip-off, or you're like, man, things are getting tight. I think we could have a fourth quarter comeback. You can stay in that action. And maybe you're looking for a bigger payout. Well, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. It's great, because when you win with FanDuel, man, you get paid instantly. JJ, as we record, there's no FanDuel line for this game yet, so let's play a quick game. What will be the FanDuel line when it comes out for Duke at Carolina?
I'm terrible at these guesses, Isaac, but any game with you, I'm down to play. I think, obviously, Duke being the favorite team here, we've seen some crazy lines and, 9 wins by 25-plus points for Duke on the season in conference play. I don't think we're heading in that direction. I see our friends over at FanDuel somewhere in the Duke, 8 to 10-point range is kind of where I think this one's going to end up, Isaac. What about you?
I was going to say 9.5. They FanDuel always goes the half point. So I'm going
they do.
Duke minus 9.5 is my take on it. So we'll see where that's going to fall. Probably coming out sometime today, Friday, as you guys are watching or listening to this. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, we're back. It's a Locked On crossover between Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On Blue Devils. I'm JJ Jackson from the Duke side of things. Isaac Schade talks all things UNC, and we're getting set for college basketball's finest rivalry. College game day rightfully will be in Chapel Hill. I know that has been a cause of contention amongst college basketball fans going into the weekend with it not being at the Auburn and Alabama game. But our rivalry means so much each and every year, regardless of where these teams are at. And Isaac, fortunately for us, the Tar Heels are playing better as of late. Because if that was not the case, I think it'd be much louder what we were hearing going into a game like this.
That's a good word, JJ. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of noise the first in round one as well, because there were some other big time matchups around the country. But I think it just speaks to, regardless of what's happening, if one team is down and the other's up or vice versa, everyone views this as the rivalry in college basketball and honestly across college sports, with all due respect to Michigan, Ohio State, and maybe the Iron Bowl or a couple other things. And that just, again, is a reminder of no matter what's been happening coming into this game, it almost always delivers.
So North Carolina right now, 20-11 overall on the season. The Tar Heels, a 13-6 mark within the league. And as noted just a second ago, they have been playing much better basketball as of late. Why has that been the case?
It's been the offense, JJ. In this 6-game winning streak, Carolina has been at 1.3 points per possession, literally in every game, or above in every game, including a season high 1.5 against Florida State. They've made a big lineup adjustment. Remember, Carolina had been playing a lot of small ball with Elliot, Cadeau, RJ Davis, Seth Trimble, 1 through 3, Drake Powell at the 4, and usually Jalen Washington or Van Allen Lubin at the 5, meaning you were going 6 foot, 6'1", 6'3", 1 through 3. Obviously, for those that know, Duke is the tallest team in the nation, and that doesn't match up very well. In this stretch, Hubert Davis has changed the starting lineup, moving Drake Powell to his normal 3, his normal small forward position, allowing him to do what he does best. That gives Carolina, yes, you're still small at the 1 and 2 with Elliot, Cadeau, and RJ Davis, but now you've got 6'5", 6'6" at the 3. Jalen Withers has moved into the starting lineup at the 4 at 6'8", and then you got Van Allen Lubin at the 5. However, one thing I will mention is that this is senior day. Hubert Davis does start his seniors, which 2 of those are already in the starting lineup in RJ Davis and Jalen Withers. The only other senior on this team is Ty Claude, who is a backup center. So I'm imagining we'll see him start in place of Van Allen Lubin, but then a quick trigger on that. The third thing I'll mention, JJ, in addition to the offensive efficiency and the lineup, is that Carolina has suddenly found themselves from 3. In this 6-game winning streak, they started it shooting as a team 32.3% on the season. Now they're up to 35.4% as a team. So in these 6 games, they've risen more than 3 percentage points on the season and now 89th in the country. They are hitting just shy of 50% as a team in that stretch and doing it from a multitude of places. In the last game at Virginia Tech, 7 different Tar Heels hit at least 1 3.
So what's interesting here, talking about the lineup change and considering this Duke game, and you're right, there are the senior day festivities. That is certainly something that North Carolina takes a lot of pride in getting those guys to start, but then makes the quick switch. A name you did not mention there is Seth Trimble. And when you look back at the first meeting that we saw earlier this year, he was one of the more effective and impactful players for this North Carolina team. How has he handled kind of the switch in the lineup?
That's a great question. With grace and dignity. He is a guy, for Duke folks who might not remember, he actually entered the transfer portal last offseason, ultimately had some conversations with some former Tar Heels and decided nah, this is where I need to be. And so came back to school. And thank goodness, by the way, that he did, because he has been phenomenal for the Tar Heels this season. Suffered a midseason kind of head injury, has come back, took a while to get back in the flow. He had been shooting well and then hadn't been. He's actually hit 5 threes in the last couple games, finding himself again. And so what's been nice for Carolina is when he comes in off the bench, along with Ian Jackson and Jalen Washington, that's kind of been the 8-man rotation with a couple minutes here and there from Cade Tyson. Seth's elite athleticism is obvious on both ends of the court, being a dogged defender, but then also just getting out in transition and running, finishing well at the rim and getting to the free throw line as well. Knocking down those threes has been really good. I've actually been sending some messages, funny enough, back and forth with his mom, and it's just really cool to see how proud of him she's been as he's stepped back into what he was doing earlier this season.
Yeah, fun player to watch, and certainly going to need to have a big night if North Carolina wants to knock off Duke, as Duke goes for the outright ACC title and their 19th win in conference play this season. Drake Powell is a guy that you mentioned is now part of the starting lineup, and when you look at that second half, that this game happened earlier inside Cameron Indoor, North Carolina put in some good work. Fortunately for Duke, they had built a large enough cushion early in the game that, in a lot of ways it did not matter there, but Drake Powell scored 12 points, all of them in the second half. You look at matchups in particular. I know going into that first meeting, you and I had been discussing he would kind of be one of the big guys to watch out for, considering his size and how he matches up with the guys at Duke. You know the personnel for the Blue Devils. How crucial is Drake Powell's performance in deciding a game like this come Saturday?
Critically crucial. He exists in the same lane as Seth Trimble in a lot of ways, but is bigger and I think has maybe a few more intangibles. I think he's really starting to find himself now, which sometimes takes freshmen a while, especially somebody like him that just does a lot of things really well, right? And that's something that Drake has done. For example, you don't really think of him necessarily as a distributor, but in this winning streak for Carolina, I can't remember the number, but it's something like 15 assists to 2 turnovers in that stretch. So he's become somebody that's taking care of the ball really well. Only 3 games all season has he committed multiple turnovers. For somebody that has the ball in his hand a lot, that's a great thing. His 3-point shooting has been really improving as well. And interestingly, I was having a conversation with a coach behind the scenes recently who said that he thinks that despite Drake being in his natural small forward position, we might actually see Drake Powell start out on Cooper Flagg, because part of the issue, JJ, and you'll remember this issue for Carolina, it was a great thing for Duke, is that Carolina was having to double Cooper early in that game. And he was like, okay, I'll just be Mr. Distribution Man and just dishing out assist after assist. So one of the things to watch for is if it's Drake Powell, or honestly, even if it's Jalen Withers, can they go one-on-one with Cooper Flagg so that they're not just letting Cooper pick them off like a good quarterback would do. And I think that's something that Drake Powell will be able to bring to the table. And hopefully his size can get up into and bother Cooper a lot. So I think that's something to watch for in particular with Drake Powell, but then also making some plays on the offensive end where he can knock down the 3, he can get out in transition and run as well. Keep an eye on all that.
All right, so all season long, North Carolina has been led by RJ Davis, who's set to play in his final game inside the Smith Center on Saturday. We'll save his impact on the game for our final segment here. But before we get there, though, I am curious just about RJ Davis, the basketball player. How is he going to be remembered by Tar Heel fans? Because this is a guy who's got this extra COVID year of eligibility. He's climbing up the charts thanks to this 5th year. So what has he meant to the program?
I'm struggling to put that into words. Is the pause, JJ. I mean, maybe it's silly. I get a little bit emotional thinking about it. We get attached to these young men that we cover and think about. He's somebody that is a legitimately good dude, right? Like that bleeds Carolina blue. He's a New York kid. When he steps on the floor on Saturday, he will become the ACC all-time leader in games played, surpassing Armando Bacot. Has literally never missed a game in his Carolina career. Every available game, he has been on the floor through thick and thin, injury, big or small. He's been out there. He's somebody that has seen peaks and valleys. He's seen a coaching change. He's been to the national championship game. He's been a 1 seed in the ACC, in the NCAA tournament. He's missed the NCAA tournament in between, right? And so all of that is part of his story and career. He's somebody that earlier this season took so much on his shoulders that he was pressing and struggling from beyond the arc. He's settled in and is playing so much more like himself now. It's still not quite like the level of last year because that was just meteoric and bonkers. And I think a lot of that is the absence of a big man, right, that can truly do it. But RJ Davis's legacy is one that will truly go down as one of the greats and one of the favorites in Carolina folklore. He has now ascended to 3rd all-time in ACC scoring behind only J.J. Redick and Tyler Hansbrough. So as it should be, we got some Blue Devils and Tar Heels right at the top of the heap there. And so excited for him to put his mark on this rivalry one last time.
It's going to be a great game, and it's coming up on Saturday. We've got the final storylines, our thoughts, predictions, and everything that you need to be aware of. It's a Locked On College crossover, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Tremendous. Our show here today is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada 4 Pro X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com, a proud sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, it's game time. It's coming up on Saturday. It's going to be a great one between Duke and North Carolina to close out the regular season. Duke in a position, Isaac, to pick up their 19th win in league play. This was a game a year ago where North Carolina was going for win number 17, which would set the all-time league mark. Duke now has surpassed that. They've got 18 wins. Clemson and Louisville have an opportunity to sit there at 18 with the Blue Devils, but it's Duke, the team that is able to make an impressive 19-1 overall finish to their record this year.
JJ, it's so crazy that 17-3 mark was the biggest 20-game mark we'd had in league play. And now 3 teams are going to surpass that this year. I think that speaks to the consistency of Duke and Clemson. And man, what a year for Louisville, dude. Like, way to go, Pat Kelsey. Like, as an ACC guy, I just love to see, like, college basketball is better when Louisville's good. So that's crazy that all 3 of those teams have surpassed that. As for this game, JJ, I think here's what I'm really excited about. Since mid-February, going back to February 15th, when Carolina's current streak of games started, both of these teams are top 4 in the nation in offensive efficiency per Torvik. Duke number 1, Carolina number 4. So, Duke's defensive acumen is far surpassing where Carolina's is. Let's acknowledge that. But I think this could be a fun, exciting up and down game now that Carolina has truly found its offense. And that's what we want in this game all the time, right? Is to just see big time players making big time plays, lots of buckets, lots of scoring, lots of runs, lots of back and forth. And with both teams operating at a high offensive level, that's what I hope we get to see.
Without a doubt. I mean, the fact that these two teams are playing so well offensively leads to a more enjoyable brand of basketball to watch, which I'm certainly for. And in so many ways, the cliche is out there to throw everything out when this game plays out because it's a rivalry and you just never know exactly what to expect. And in some ways, I think that's true because we were going into the first game and yes, you would look at these two teams and be like, there is just no way that it is a blowout, that it's going to be competitive. And North Carolina is going to be able to give their best shot and upset Duke and Cameron like they had done the year before, thanks to Cormac Ryan. And then the game happened and, it was a Duke blowout. And so not knowing exactly what to expect in that one, I think is going to be so big. And then I do think we talk a lot about Cooper Flagg's impact and Drake Powell and Jalen Withers, what they could do to try and limit the player of the year frontrunner in Cooper Flagg. But RJ Davis, and then from the Duke perspective, Con Knippel and Tyrese Proctor, those guards are another big thing that I'm watching out for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's like one of my bold predictions for this season on Locked On College Basketball was that Con Knippel would be Duke's leading scorer, not Cooper Flagg. And that's nothing against Cooper. It's just that Cooper does so much so well, and Con's a bucket, man, right? Yep. And so I just say that to say, yes, you cannot divert so much attention to Cooper Flagg that you forget the rest of the artillery that John Shire has available to him. And that's key. You mentioned it, JJ, and the first meeting there in Cameron was over before it began. Part of the reason for that, or a key reason for that, was not only what we mentioned earlier about Cooper Flagg just carving up the Tar Heels. Elliot Cadeau committed 3 turnovers in the first 3.5 minutes of that game. Yeah. Consequently, Duke had a 17-point lead just 7 minutes in. And that was it, right? It's just basically cruise control after that. And so I think that's a critical thing is what start does Elliot Cadeau get off to for Carolina? He has struggled this year with multiple games of committing 2 first-half fouls and being relegated to the bench. Multiple games where he has had 3 or more turnovers. Now, he did that in Carolina's last game, but also had 12 assists. And so I think we're watching Elliot Cadeau as a key player for the Tar Heels to watch and how short of a leash Coach Davis has him on. I am flooded with Tar Heel fans asking for Elliot Cadeau to come off the bench and Ian Jackson to be inserted along with RJ Davis in the starting backcourt. And so I think we'll see those moves pretty quickly if Elliot Cadeau is not out the door ready to go quickly.
And so then let's also talk about this game and the tournament implications that are on hand here, because that is so massive, an opportunity for Duke to really deliver another devastating blow to North Carolina as they're trying to get into the NCAA tournament field. How critical is a game like this?
It's massive, JJ. It's funny. We talk about these previous couple years. 2 years ago, Duke's win over Carolina to end the regular season was basically the nail in the coffin of any NCAA tournament hopes. The Tar Heels were just barely on the outside looking in when it was all said and done. Last year, you said it, winning this game last year at the end of the regular season gave Carolina the ACC outright regular season champion. Duke's in a similar position now where I do still think, even should Duke win this game, I think there is a path if Carolina can pick up something in the ACC tournament next week, but it delivers a massive blow to them. Literally, as we talk, Carolina has been flirting with last team in, first team out status. So a win against, top 2 team in the nation, depending on which metric you look at and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that it's like guaranteed if you win this game, but if North Carolina only has one quad 1 win right now, JJ, and this is obviously would be the second in that category, similar to back in 2022 on Coach K's last regular season game. Folks may or may not remember, Carolina was on the precipice there too, and then that win at the end of that season really put Carolina in the position they needed to be in to get into the NCAA tournament. That's what they're trying to do again here, while Duke can obviously spoil that, and then we look and recalibrate to see where things are in the ACC tournament. On the Duke side of it, though, JJ, Blue Devils are cruising for a 1 seed right now. Do you think it feels pretty locked up to me? Let's just say in some crazy world, I don't think this happens, but let's say Carolina beats Duke tomorrow and Duke loses its first ACC tournament game. In that scenario, does it feel to you like the Blue Devils have done enough to still hang on to a 1 seed? Obviously, we don't think that's going to happen, but
yeah. No, I think that's the scenario that you really start to have those questions, right? Because it would be for Duke, 5 total losses on the year. You wouldn't have been able to be the outright champions. You'd be sharing it. And then a very quick exit in the NCAA tournament. It'd be the 2-game losing streak that Duke hasn't seen happen this entire season, trying to go into an NCAA tournament field. And you look at what the rest of the sport has done. And I know that for both of us, this is so hard to project what every single team in America is going to do to set all this up. But given that the SEC has been so loaded, given that there are teams like Houston that are playing as well as they are, or even a team like St. John's, if they continue to run through the Big East, where do they end up come Selection Sunday? There's a case for that conference champion to get a really shot there. So I think that those questions really, really become more apparent if Duke were to lose these next 2 games, that they would not be on the 1 line anymore. And traditionally for Duke fans, we've seen when Duke wins the national championship, it's because they were a 1 seed and because they were set up with a favorable draw when the tournament field is all decided. So big stakes on Saturday for both of these teams for sure.
That said, we don't expect that for Duke. I think Duke should win at least one of those 2 scenarios and be in great shape, along with Auburn, who seems like a shoe-in, Houston, as you said. And then honestly, I think Florida has the leg up now on the 4th 1 seed, having won at Auburn, at Alabama, and beating Tennessee there at home. So we'll see how that all plays out. JJ, Ken Palm, while we might not have the FanDuel, has this game Duke -11. What do you think? What's happening tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think Duke's ultimately going to get the job done. I think this is going to be a win for Duke. I do think that I could see Duke winning by 12 or so. I think these analytics are so spot on with what they've been able to do throughout the year. I don't see this being a 2-possession game. I think that Duke's going to be able to kind of win this game comfortably. I'd say maybe towards the second half, when you get to the 7-8 minute mark, that's when Duke really starts to create that final separation and put to bed any hopes of North Carolina winning it and Duke being able to win their 19th league game. What about you?
JJ, I'm remembering back to one of the first crossovers we ever did together, which was in advance of that 2022 game at Duke. It feels there's a lot of shades of that in this game, other than it's in the different location of the 2. And I think that day I projected Duke to win and things ended up well. So I'm going to have to reverse psychology this for the Tar Heels and stick with you that I'm going to predict a Duke victory here by 7.
See, I don't like you doing this. I don't like you doing this at that point, but Duke well done on your part.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Duke by 7 in the Dean Dome with just late free throws to pull away just a little bit more after maybe it's within a possession with 5 to go. And then Duke stretches it out a little bit there at the end. Let's go 88-81 Blue Devils.
I love it. Yeah, I do think we're set for a high scoring game between these 2 teams. I'm excited, man. I can't wait to see how it shapes up and the ACC tournament seedings that are there. And Isaac, I can speak for you here that you and I are going to be all over the ACC tournament and everything, the fallout that comes from this game coming up tomorrow. It's set to be a good one, and no better place to hear all the news and notes than right here on Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On Blue Devils.
Big thanks to JJ for joining me on the crossover episode to get us up to speed on Duke and what's been happening with them since last time we played. Guys, that's it for today's episode. Don't forget, we've got our typical Friday episode. Coach Rob is joining me to talk about all things Carolina, get it set up as well. If you've not subscribed to the show on YouTube, make sure you do so right now so that you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there. That link's in the show notes. Same with Locked On Tar Heels Insiders. You can go next level with this show. Direct access to me, free access, by the way, to all of my stats and charts and datas and record books. We'll be live tomorrow right after the game. Make sure you keep it locked right here. Win or lose, we'll be talking about it. Folks, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow after the game, but until then, peace.